My parents were interesting people. I mean, they were um, fairly intelligent, very intelligent, as a matter of fact. Uh, they both uh, came here in the 20s from the Soviet Union at the time. My father had emigrated from the Soviet Union first to Israel, where he was unhappy, and then he came here. My mother came with her entire family, three brothers and four sisters, and they settled in New York, met, and got married. My mother was a very intelligent person, and she was unfortunately removed from her environment in the Soviet Union when she was rather young. She was the second youngest of her sisters, and she came here and was never allowed to go back to school. She had to go to work for the family. My father was a furrier. My mother was a homemaker. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in Brighton Beach. I never really saw my dad most of the week. I saw him essentially only on weekends. And there were weekends where he worked both days also. My brother was born in the midst of the Depression in 1929, and I came along as a surprise 4.5 years later.
What made you decide to go into medicine?
My aunt gave birth to a child at home, which was unusual in those days. I was present at the birth, and they used my yo-yo cord to tie off the umbilical cord. Uh, and that, as I recall, was basically the first time that I thought anything about medicine. Um, I was 8 at the time. Having grown up in Brooklyn and New York, there was always this Yankee Giant Dodgers coexistence and rivalry. Baseball was not a sport, it was a religion. My favorite baseball player of all time was Ted Williams. I thought that he was a remarkable athlete. I was a teenage soprano, tenor. So when I graduated from public school, we stood up and sang Summertime, and I had a lead part in it. Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. The first musical I ever went to see, I was taken on my birthday by my brother to see Porgy and Bess. And I was mesmerized. But my favorite piece of music has always been Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. There have been two pieces of music that when I hear them, make me sit up and take notice. One was always Rhapsody in Blue, and the other was Slaughter on 10th Avenue.
Two very different pieces.
Absolutely. I can't tell you why either. When I was chief resident at Cedars-Sinai, it was 64, I believe. Joan was out here on a visit, and we were supposed to meet then. Unfortunately, I developed hepatitis and infectious mono and was hospitalized. In 1966, I was in New York visiting. We went on a blind date, and we went to see a play called Hogan's Goat. Unfortunately, the night before, I had been out with some friends and developed food poisoning. And I think I was making more noise than Hogan's Goat was making. But turns out that Joan's lease was up and she had to move. And she lived next to a church, and I thought I heard bells, so we were having brunch with her mother at Charlie Brown's or something. And shortly after we had eaten, her mother pulled her book out of her purse and said, "I understand you're getting married." I said, "Oh?" That's when I knew that asking her to get married and move to California had obviously been accepted. She didn't tell me that, but before that luncheon, happily, she became pregnant in the first year of our marriage. My fondest memory probably is the birth of my son. I mean, he's the light of my life, except for my wife. And so I think that was a striking moment in my life.
What do you remember about the day your son was born?
We had to stop at a service station to get gas. I told her there was plenty of time since it was the first child. He wasn't coming right away. And after we got to the hospital, it was a long and arduous procedure with probably 16 hours of labor before a cesarean section was performed.
What would you say your saddest memory is?
The experience of parting from my family and going off to Okinawa and the military. It happened shortly after Scott was born, probably about 3 weeks after he was born. I left for the military, and I didn't see them again until April of the following year, so it was about 5 months.
How would you describe Joan, what she means to you?
I think I chose well. She's a great human being who has given of herself to more people than I think most people do. She has been a outstanding parent and has always sacrificed her time and efforts. I think we have produced a wonderful human being. I hope for Scott that a life of enjoyment and happiness, basically. Hopefully, he seems to get a great deal of enjoyment out of his profession. He likes working with people. I don't know what his, secondary choices will be. He may return to his first love, the arts and the theater.
If you could be any age again, or go back to any chapter in your life, what do you think that age or stage or adventure would be?
As a newlywed, Joan had never lived in California before. It was an experience moving from the East Coast. We were starting our life together. I wish we had more children. Very early removed to Okinawa. Unfortunately, Joan chose not to get pregnant overseas. I think that I didn't enjoy life enough when I was able to do the things that I was able to do. I probably should have done more of them. I think we should have traveled more. I think that we should have spent more time together as a family. To me, family relationships are very important. And for whatever reason, we never did spend much time with my brother and his children. My attitude has been one of the glasses is half empty rather than half full. I think I could have been a more upbeat person. If I could have been less introverted, I think I would have been a happier guy. I've been very fortunate. My older brother is still alive. I lost my parents, but they were in their late 80s when they died, so they lived good lives, long lives.
How difficult is it for you to say, I love you?
It's always been difficult for me. I'm not a very demonstrative person. I think under the current circumstances, it's become easier. I think my son and I have grown a lot closer. I think I was a good doctor. I think I've done a good job. And I think I was a caring physician. And I had good relationships with my patients and my colleagues. The first thought that always entered my mind was, uh, what can I do for this patient, rather than can I get it done tomorrow? Um, I would spend extraordinary amounts of time trying to get things done as quickly as possible, and not worry about getting home for dinner or getting to the theater, things like that. And maybe it was wrong, and the life of sacrifice is not necessarily the best way to do things, but it gave me a sense of satisfaction. I can think of no better lot in life than helping other people. There were many times that Scott was involved in AYSO soccer and other things, and I was never able to get to the uh, to the episodes. Uh, and when he eventually graduated from college and became surprisingly interested in healthcare and medicine, and he applied to medical school, long after I was shown the essay that he had written, he understood it was going to be difficult and hard, that his father had missed many meals with the family, and his father had missed his growing up.
What's the one thing that you'd still love to do?
I'm an avid fisherman. I have actually been many places in the world trying to do that. I have yet to catch a billfish. That was one thing I would like to do. I basically would like to become a fairly proficient golfer so that my brother and I could spend time together.
You talked about fishing, but I know you also have many other passions.
My father, as a hobby, was a home winemaker. When I got to California as a house officer, I met a doctor who was really knowledgeable about wine, and he got us all at the VA hospital interested in wine drinking, simply because he was a shareholder in the Paul Masson winery, and they could get wine for $1 a bottle. My favorite California wine is Silver Oak, and my favorite wine overall is probably Burgundy, Pinot Noir. I think that living life every day and enjoying it is something that people should really take to heart.
What did you feel when you found out that you have a serious illness?
Like everybody else, you ask why me. Uh, like everybody else, you get angry, and you basically say, I'm going to beat this. I don't fear death. Um, I would be very unhappy if I was put in a position where I could not basically care for myself, um, and became a burden on other people. I think that's probably my greatest fear.
How would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a friend, as a physician, as a husband and a father.
In all those areas, you've done a pretty good job, hmm?
I hope so.